Matty, help me understand. Help me understand, Matty.
Again, yes. Salutations, everybody. It is Matty here today, sitting down to talk about Halo. Again, yes. This news cycle unexpectedly had some continuity to it here on the Mr. Matty channel. Just yesterday, we talked about Phil Spencer's response.
Neutrogena gently cleanses without leaving skin dry and tight.
To the three.
That's, Neutrogena products. They're targeting Mr. Matty. Apparently they think he has like dry skin or dirty skin. I don't know. That's mean, Neutrogena. They'll start recommending me stuff like that. I'm like, how dare you? How dare you?
4-3 layoffs, the future of Halo, where in particular, he dodged the 10-year plan question when it came to Halo Infinite.
Yeah, that's never good. Like, if you have a very successful franchise, people are like, so what's like 10 years? In game devs, that's like 1.5 releases away, right? It's like, yeah, it's 10 years from now. What's the plan? You just didn't talk about it. It's just, no. That's not good. That's bad.
Now, today, we have some answers and then some, because Bloomberg has the scoop on what's happening with 343 in the terms of number of layoffs, who was laid off in what position, and of course, more importantly, what's going on with the engine, what's the future of this 10-year plan, are they wiping the slate clean, and even the suggestion that Halo is going to multiple platforms. So we have a lot to talk about today in the terms of the future of this franchise, so get cozy, everyone. It's another doozy. And with
I remind you of Elvis the Alien. You don't even know how often I get told that. It's like a very common thing. People think that we're like brothers and stuff. I looked him up because I started getting that comment like maybe a couple years ago. I started to see it a lot. And, I personally don't see it or hear it, but apparently a lot of people do. So I'm the weird one out. But yeah, I take it as a compliment because he makes really, really good stuff. So I do appreciate it. But yeah, people think that we're like brothers. I've gotten that. People are like, so are you like the brother who makes the gaming content? He makes movie content or something? I'm like, no, I don't know, but it's common. Like I've gotten that a lot.
That if you are new here, Halo franchise.
Yeah, sub to Matty.
The article. Microsoft says it's going to keep making games in the popular Halo franchise at its prized 343 Industries studio, despite rumors to the contrary. But after a leadership overhaul, massive layoffs, and a host of big changes, the outfit is all but starting from scratch. While Microsoft declined to provide specific figures, at least 95 people at the company have lost their jobs, according to a spreadsheet of affected employees reviewed by Bloomberg.
Oof.
The list named dozens of veterans, including top directors and contractors, upon which the studio heavily relies. Those temporary employees were given just a few days warning before their contracts came to an end, according to people familiar with the process, asking to not be identified because they weren't authorized to speak publicly. The cuts led to rumors that 343 would farm out development of the Halo series to other companies. Matt Booty, head of Microsoft's Xbox Game Studios, said in an interview that 343 will continue as the internal developer for Halo and as the home of Halo.
Yeah, and the reason, again, why this is important is because just like last week, people were saying that Microsoft was going to take, like, basically dissolve 343. They were going to take Halo, give it to another studio. They were just going to say, screw it, you guys can't handle this. We're moving on. But apparently they're keeping it at 343. And they're just clearing house as well with layoffs, firing people. Now, I do want to say what he just described, it sounds like calling it like firing is a little different. Because they described contracts not being renewed with only a few days notice. So what it sounds like to me is that these were probably contractors working on Halo Infinite, maybe the multiplayer or the rumored Battle Royale. And then they were contracted for a set period of time, and then Microsoft's just not renewing their contracts. Like, it sucks because those people now don't have work, but my understanding from talking to game devs is that that's pretty standard. Like, that happens a lot. The hope for a lot of game devs is to work contracting and be a contractor, and then to eventually get to the point where they become an employee. That's the goal, at least. But a lot of these people start as contractors and work their way up. One of my contacts within like Ubisoft that I've spoken to a lot and that I've used as reference for Assassin's Creed stuff, because he works on Assassin's Creed stuff. He started as a contractor back in like 2017 when I was talking to him initially, and now he's like he's a lead for one of their gameplay teams. I don't think it's basically the team that goes around and places dynamic content on the maps. So he's actually moved up a lot, but he started as a contractor, just doing, I think he was like a QA contractor or something. I don't remember, but very, very little stuff. And then eventually got hired and now works for them. So what it sounds like is at least some of these 95 jobs that have been lost are contractors that just weren't renewed, which could mean that maybe Microsoft is planning on hiring full-time employees later after they restructure management. It could mean that they just weren't satisfied with their work, considering they haven't made a lot of progress in the last year or so. Who knows? But it doesn't sound like, just to be clear, it doesn't sound like from what they're describing that this is like 95 people who have worked there for 15 years and now are getting cleaned out. Like it doesn't sound like that's what's happening. It sounds like they're getting rid of people who have not been there long at all.
Internally, Booty had assured 343 staff that even as they work with outside partners and outsourcing houses, think something like Certain Affinity in this case, they will remain in charge. 95 layoffs, they're hitting the reset button, and they're still in charge. And we talked about this yesterday, right? We talked about how Phil Spencer had externally said, you know what, 343, the heart and soul of Halo lies with them. Matt Booty has said as much publicly. He's saying...
Yeah, I also think it's sort of like a... I'm sorry, Matty. I do Matty so dirty with these pauses every time. But I do think that there's something to be said for the optics of this. It just doesn't look good to basically like take your biggest franchise away from a studio that's been working on it for a while and then give it to somebody else. It just doesn't look good. It doesn't scream confidence to investors. It's just a bad look. So I think they'd much rather keep the 343 name, gut it if they have to, and then figure out where they're going from there, just for sake of optics. I mean, imagine if like, what would even be an example on the PlayStation side? Like I don't even know if there's a clear example, but like if they took, say, maybe, well, I mean, I guess we could rewind the clock. Let's rewind the clock. God of War Ascension. God of War Ascension from Santa Monica Studio came out, and it wasn't received super well, didn't sell super well, and it was pretty clear that they just needed a reboot of the franchise. It just wasn't working. If Sony had taken God of War and given it to another developer entirely and just shut down Santa Monica Studio after that game didn't do well, it would scream a lack of confidence, for one. It would say, yeah, we screwed up and now we're going to clean house and fix it, which doesn't look good to investors, because investors are only going to be thinking about the fact that you allowed it to get screwed up. And it's just not a good look. So they'd rather figure it out, rework the team, and then keep it at that same company under that same umbrella, if that makes sense.
So we're going to let that reality sink in a little bit. I find the decision questionable. I don't know any other company that has had the reins to arguably one of the most important franchises in gaming, has muffed up 4 different releases in different manners, and still is the heart and soul of it. That is some crazy, I would almost say, luck, if you will, and some true benevolence on Xbox's behalf. But what I really do take some issue with here is how it's being defined as hitting the reset button. One thing I don't see a lot of people talking about here is, wasn't Halo Infinite supposed to be that soft reset button for the franchise in general, right? We saw how things kind of got away from 343 with 4 kind of finding their footing. Okay, Master Chief Collection now speaks for itself. It's excellent, but when it first launched, it was one of the most broken, disappointing launches in the Xbox history. And then you had Halo 5, which had some good but sweaty multiplayer, and its story, again, kind of speaks to itself. So much so that fans were like, what is going on with the narrative here? What are you all doing? And so that's where Halo Infinite came in, this 10-year plan. We're not making new Halo games after this. We're just adding to the Infinite platform and continuing to build that up. Wasn't this the soft reset So now we're resetting, almost a reset, if you will.
Yeah, reboot the reboot. Exactly. Exactly, Ismail. Like, that's exactly what they're doing. Like, reboot the reboot. That'll work. It's a bad look. It's a bad look.
And I just can't wrap my head around how messy it is. I know a lot of people will say, well, it's a moot point. They've already cleaned out staff. They have this plan in place, but I don't understand why, and granted, it hasn't been reported or announced yet, so it's possible it's happening, but why couldn't Xbox say, like, hey, why don't y'all make a new IP? You know, let's truly hit the reset.
I don't know. I mean, I guess you could do a new IP, but like Halo is, I mean, it is a juggernaut in the industry. It just is. It's a huge franchise. A lot of us grew up playing it, have very fond memories. Like, I would love to one day be able to play a good Halo game with Locke. That would be great. Being able to just sit up there, play games with it, like, that would be awesome. I don't expect to be able to do that anytime soon. Just because, like, they can't get their crap together. I really don't know. Gorilla had a similar situation with Killzone. Yeah, I mean, maybe, and that's probably what he's getting to. Like, maybe it is just a matter of needing to try something different. They just gotta shake it off and do something that they haven't done before. Something wacky. I mean, look at Hi-Fi Rush. That's coming from a studio that normally does, like, horror games. And they nailed that. So maybe they need to figure it out. Maybe they do need to try something else. But I think it's also a bad look. And it's just... I don't know, it's tough to justify giving them a new IP to mess with when they haven't been able to figure out the biggest IP that Microsoft has really relied on for a long time. And they can't put that together. So it's just a bad look. I don't know.
Button. You don't have to be just defined by Halo. You can make Halo games too, but why don't we take a small team, put them to the side, work on something smaller, work on something different. And Xbox has shown to be kind of the masters of that. You see what happened with Hi-Fi Rush, Ghostwire. You see what happened with things like, oh, I don't know, Grounded Pentiment, and now they're working on Avowed. Like, there are so many different games happening within Xbox, all from the same team. Right now, I would say 343 is in the most dire need of some experimentation because it's just constant problems, it seems, from the outside looking in, and I'm rooting for them. I love Halo. Like, I'm a huge fan of that, and I like the direction of Infinite as a Combat Evolved fan. It's my favorite Halo, so, like, I was about the vision, but they just have shown they cannot execute, and so that's why you clean house, right? But with that new talent in, this should give them an opportunity to redefine themselves beyond Halo. I know people will say, well, they're called 343. Who cares? Branding error. Most people aren't going to care if they...
Who cares? Branding error. I'm going to start using that. Just toss that out randomly. I think they need to start thinking about what made the franchise successful in the first place and stop trying to revolutionize the series. Give us a strong, replayable narrative with competitive co-op. Yeah, I also think... I also think that there's something to be said for the couch co-op and just the friendly gameplay tied into that. Like, the fact that online co-op is so ubiquitous nowadays, I don't think that that's an excuse for eliminating split screen co-op or couch co-op. I think It Takes Two is a great example of how couch co-op is still very viable. And that was a standalone game like that. That was standalone where you could only play it in couch co-op. So why are we suggesting that, now all of a sudden we definitely can't manage to implement a game mode with split screen? Like, come off it. Shout out Cuphead. Yeah, boom. Shout out Cuphead. For real. It's just, I find it so frustrating that all of these multiplayer studios refuse to do it. Like, if freaking Apex had a couch co-op mode where I could hand one controller to Nikki, or I could have a friend over, or three friends over, and then we play split screen, that'd be great. I had friends over a few months ago, and we wanted to play games together. We ended up playing Mario Kart. It was awesome. But if you don't know what Mario Kart is, by the way, it's basically where you all have a beer, and then you have to drink the whole beer by the time you're done with that race. So you can take like little swigs, but the one rule is that you cannot drink and drive. So you have to drive, and then when you go off a ramp, you can take a swig. Or if you're going to take a swig, you have to set down the controller, take a swig. But you have to finish the drink by the end of the race. So you have to like strategically time the drink. Iron Cyclops, Caleb, who's on here every once in a while, he just shotguns the beer at the beginning of the race. And it's a little upsetting how good he is at it. I'll be completely real. But that's a separate issue. As for like, but anyway, they came over and we wanted to play some zombies, some like Call of Duty zombies. And we ended up playing a game that's like 10 years old just to tackle that. Like, because none of the modern stuff has, either it doesn't have high quality or it doesn't have split screen co-op period, or its split screen co-op is garbage. And you need to buy like 15 different DLC to be able to like decently play it. It's ridiculous. I will also say, if you've been to my link tree, you've seen this, but my link tree in the description, I have a link at the very bottom of that link tree to the projector thing that I use in my family room upstairs. And it allows you to project like 100-inch screen at 4K, like 120 hertz if you want, or like more likely 4K 60. So what we did is on that huge projector, it's like 100 inches, 110 inches, but like on a 100-inch screen, for example, you could do 4-player split screen in Zombies or Halo or something, and each player would have the equivalent size of like a 50-inch screen. It's ridiculous. It's actually stupid. That's how big that screen is. Like, you know, you used to play as a kid and you could never, like if you were the guy in one of the corners, if you're playing with 2 other friends, then the one guy on the bottom would get the wide screen. And so it wasn't really fair. Or he would get it cropped and then there'd be the big black sections on either side. And so it, like, you could never really see what was going on either. With this screen, it's insane. It's like 50 inches diagonally for each player in a 4-player split screen. It's ridiculous. Yeah, my big projector screen, it's stupid, but it makes split screen co-op awesome. But now it's not a thing, I guess. 10 times the detail. I was going to play the sound bite, but I lost all my sound bites and stuff when I moved the PC over. So I have to redo all of my sound bites. It's very sad. It's tragic. It's tragic.
You see Game X on the store shelf, they're like, 343, isn't that Halo? Why are they making an action beat 'em up game? I would just say, who cares?
I don't think anybody's going to care either. Again, I'm sorry, Matty. He has one of those faces every time I pause the video. He's like, I'm sorry. But I really don't think it's a big issue. I really don't think so. I think it's a bad look, certainly, for them to do this, but I don't consider it to be a major problem.
Branding's important, but for the average consumer to find a game on store shelves or in Game Pass, they're not going to get so inquisitive that they're not going to play a game. I think we're putting a little too much emphasis on the name 343. Is it a mistake because of things like this? Yes. And could you argue the same thing could happen with the Coalition because that's all Gears? Yes, definitely. But I don't think it should bar them from doing other games because most people just care about the game at the end of the day. So that's how I feel about the reset button. Now it gets more interesting as we dig into the technical future of 343.
Oh, yeah, this is really interesting. For those of you who missed it, they apparently are ditching their engine and are moving completely into Unreal. It's yet another example of a huge, huge company and franchise committing to Epic's Unreal Engine. It's a big deal. Why was Infinite so disappointing? Well, like a handful of reasons. For one, it was delayed constantly, and it was supposed to come out well before it did. So there's that. Secondly, while the main story was actually pretty good, and I think a lot of people liked it, I really liked it. It was relatively straightforward and short. And after you finished it, there wasn't a lot left to do. And then the multiplayer came out, and the multiplayer was solid. A lot of people played it, but there was a huge lack of content. And the long-term support is hilariously bad. Like Apex or Warzone, any of these other games, they have, the season pass. They have it so you can level up things, or you can gain gear and cosmetics through gameplay. The whole process of gaining XP and rewarding the player for playing the game was totally broken at launch. And for whatever reason, it was going to take them like 3 to 6 months to implement any changes at all. It was insane. So guys, you have to earn our playtime. You don't get to just get our playtime day one, like for 6 months. Like, no, you've got to earn it with long-term stuff. And if like the way it was, if I remember correctly, so if you guys remember correct me how it worked. But my understanding from what I recall, when Halo Infinite launched, the multiplayer XP was based on basically like randomly generated achievements that you had to pursue. So it would be something like, shoot 5 people and finish them with a grenade. And then that would be, you do that 5 times and that's your daily challenge. And you have to complete that and then a handful of other little random things that it generated in order to get the XP basically for that day, which is really weird. It's just an odd way of doing it. And everybody's like, why can't I just get XP for matches? Like the more kills I get, the more XP I get. Why not just do that? This doesn't make any sense. And they were like, yeah, well, they had no answer. Because again, like with all of this, there's always a reason. Like gameplay changes don't just happen. Okay, stuff doesn't change on its own. They had to actively decide and choose to remove the standard, which is you play better, you get more rewards. And if you play more, you get more rewards. They took that out and replaced it with this system where it randomly generates challenges that you have to complete in order to earn XP. How is that better? What does that achieve? Like if you're going to make a change, you should be able to explain why you made that change. The answer was money. You could buy challenge swaps. So like if you had a challenge that came up and you didn't want to do it, or it was really grindy or stupid or inordinately difficult, you could just do that. It's pretty bad. You're a goat, Luke. I appreciate that, Jay. You're a goat. No, you're a goat. In my opinion, the story was more than lackluster. The villain was hilariously bad and dull. The campaign, especially the gameplay, was pretty fun, but story-wise, man, I don't know. Not really memorable. Yeah, I would agree it's not memorable. I couldn't really explain the story of Halo Infinite to you if I tried. But what I do remember is that it was pretty fun doing the Spider-Man thing with that grapple hook, and I thought the combat was relatively fun, and I had a good time with it. I played it with a controller on the Xbox. That should tell you a lot, because I can't stand playing shooters on controllers, but because I suck at it, to be fair. But still, wow, awful. Yeah, it's inexplicably terrible. Like there's literally no excuse, because there's just no reason for it. And that's what I really don't understand. There's just no reason for it to be that broken and stupid. So I don't know. I got it when it launched, and I actually had a great time playing with the multiplayer. So when it launched, I enjoyed it. I don't think we ever streamed it, but I did have a lot of fun at launch playing Halo Infinite. We played it with friends. I have a good friend who's really into Apex, and he dumped it to play Halo for like a month and a half. Played a ton of it and loved it. And I played with him, and we had a great time. It was awesome. I was like, okay, well, what happened? And what happened is that there was no long-term support. There was no, for one, like when it launched, what was it? There was something that was broken at launch. Was it that like Melee did twice as much damage as it should have done? There was something like that. But it took them like 3.5 weeks to patch it out. So it's like playing Warzone, or DMR Zone, if you guys played during the DMR meta in Verdansk. And it was just unplayable because like literally anywhere you were pop, dead, completely dead. Like it was totally broken. It was a tactical rifle that you could quickly 2-tap, just pop. And it would do so much damage. It could take you from full armor to dead like that. So anybody sees you, you're dead. It just ruined the game. But at least they got that fixed in like a week, like 5 days to a week. It conveniently took them just long enough that everybody bought the package that just so happened to be in the store at that time, available for purchase, to get the DMR if you wanted, but still. No Shot DMR was like a month, I feel like. Was it that long, or did it just feel that long? Maybe it was longer than that, but I've with a lot of those metas, like the gallantry, that thing, like that meta existed for a while. That one was weeks and weeks. Was the DMR a month? They had to nerf it multiple times. Oh, you're right. I do remember that. They nerfed it once and it didn't work. It didn't nerf it enough. And then they nerfed it again, but they nerfed it way too much and they broke something else. And then they had to refix that. Yeah, there were multiple. You're right. Jeez, that was a mess. But again, it's like, it's my Warzone conspiracy theory is that Activision intentionally breaks these guns, because I can't help but notice they always break right as they're available for purchase in the store. So like, it's never a gun. Guns don't get broken that are like, oh, you can only get this by grinding. It's always available in the store. It's really, really weird how that works. Like, I think they break it. They leave it in the store. So all these like kids who want to be the next like Nick Merckx, they go and they buy it because it's the only way to be viable in the game. And then they play with that for a week. And then the next week they break another gun that's also available in the store. Like, they just intentionally break the game on a regular basis to milk you for money. It's ridiculous. That's what made me sick of it. I was like, I don't care that much. I don't care. If I'm a streamer, I get it. I'm a streamer. Oh yeah, it's $20 to get the pack that has the skin and that has the gun I need. Okay, whatever. But like, I'm not streaming Warzone. I don't need that. He took my thing. Red flag.